Welcome to the Uncle's channel. Thanks for watching today, and let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy, Game Boy Color game. Today, focus on a game called Beauty and the Beast, a board game adventure for the Game Boy Color. Now, this game here is basically like a watered-down, very kiddie version of Mario Party. It's going to take place on a board game. You're going to play as Belle, and you're trying to travel around it, completing small mini-games to get extra rolls or different power-ups in order to move around the board a little bit faster, in order to try to find the Beast before Gaston can find the Beast and rescue him. And so there are multiple boards that you can go through, and we're going to go through all of that and more as we finish Beauty and the Beast, a board game adventure. Now, this game did give it up in our queue a good bit because the mystery driver requested I cover it sooner than later, so naturally moved up in the queue. Is there a game that you would like to see me cover? Let me know in the comments down below, and just like Beauty and the Beast, I'll move it right on up. Now, I do like the comment that the mystery driver left. He did say that there was a wolf level that he had to defeat for his little sister growing up in Beauty and the Beast, and I will say, the wolf level is the only level in the game that is even like minorly difficult, and I actually lost the wolf level the first time I went through it, so I could understand why your sister might have needed some assistance on that. Now, I always like to start the videos up looking at the box art for the game first, and box art for Beauty and the Beast here, it pretty much summarized the game scene for scene here. You have Belle on her horse, and there's a mini game of Belle riding her horse, trying to dodge different wolves and different rocks and different bats that are going to come at you. You have the Beast off to the side fighting off some of the wolves. There's a mini game, like I mentioned earlier, where the Beast is fighting off these wolves. And so the cover is perfect here. I mean, it summarizes the game in every single way. Obviously, it doesn't show a board game, but that'd be a pretty lame cover to simply show like a board for a board game there. And so overall, good cover for the game. Now, when you do load it up here, the title screen is a little bit of a disappointment because it does show Belle and the Beast right there in the center, and there's like all the different game options that you can choose from, but there is no background music for the title screen. Beauty and the Beast had like one of the all-time greatest Disney soundtracks out there, and the idea that they didn't include any of those songs, much less one on the title screen here, is just a crime against humanity, and they really should have known better. Now, there are 5 options you can choose from. There's story game, which we're obviously going to go through to try to get the credits to roll. There's board game, practice game, challenge mode, and options. Obviously, options just has like, a little sound test, things like that. Challenge mode is good if you want to try any of the mini games like a harder setting to get a high score that you can compete with your friends on. Practice game is going to allow you to practice any of the mini games as many times as you want to get your skill levels up. Board game allows you to play any of the boards with multiple humans, basically taking turns passing the Game Boy back and forth up to 4 players. So that's going to be like your most party-like game mode if you wanted to break this game out at a party, which most of you probably will not. And then there's the story game, like I mentioned earlier, which is going to take us through the later events of the story of Beauty and the Beast while going through a board game. Now, the story mode is divided into 3 separate maps, each one advancing the storyline a little bit. The first one you're going to go through is the village, and it's going to take place, obviously, in the village here. Gaston is gathering his forces in order to try to go find the Beast and attack the Beast. Belle is trapped inside the cellar with Maurice, her father, and Chip is going to use his wood cutting machine to sort of break through the cellar, get her out, and then both of them are going to rush off as fast as possible to try to get to the Beast before the other one. And that, of course, is the board game map here, or the board game storyline. You're both on the board game trying to, get to the destination first to reach the Beast. Now, there is background music for the cutscene, and the background music is not too bad. It's going to repeat pretty much through most of the game except for the mini games. However, it's like I said earlier, it's not the music from the actual movie, so it is a little bit of a letdown. Now, the board for the village is going to be in a snake-like shape, and as far as like the rules of the board game go, you basically just simply take turns rolling the dice, advancing along the little pathway until you get all the way to the end, and whoever gets to the end first wins that particular board. Now, when Gaston moves, you don't actually get to see him roll the dice. You don't get to see him play his mini games. He just simply moves his piece along the board. And when Belle moves her piece along the board, you actually get to roll the dice. You get a number on the dice. You move that many pieces, and wherever you land, you get to play like a little mini game or get like a little bonus depending on which space that you landed on. And I'm going to go ahead and say it here. The board game itself is a little bit disappointing. Not the mini games necessarily, but the board game here is very simplistic. It's not very interactive. It's not very immersive. Like, you don't get to see Gaston roll the dice. I'm not saying we need to watch him play his mini games, but that, maybe like seeing like the consequences of the space that he landed on, that might be nice. And even when you're moving around the board, the graphics are nice, everything looks good, but it's just simply very basic as far as like the gameplay loop. But let's go ahead and talk about all the different mini game spaces that you can land on and different games that you can play here. Now, they are going to vary in quality a little bit. Some are pretty darn fun, some of them are not very fun at all. And so let's go through them one by one here. Now, the first one that I landed on was Cogsworth, and he's basically going to give you a question from the film And the faster that you answer it, the more bonus points that you're going to get. And next time you roll the dice, you're going to get those extra bonus points added onto your number that you rolled, and you can move extra spaces. Now, if you answer the question very slowly, you don't get to move as many spaces. And if you get the question wrong, you actually get -1. So you're on your next roll, you actually get one less than what the dice showed. Me personally, I knew the movie decently well, so I got most of the questions right that Cogsworth asked. But as far as like a fun mini game, I mean, it's just a question here. And so not necessarily my favorite. Now, the next board game space I land on is going to be a picture of Maurice. And this is probably the most common space that I continually land on throughout the game. I'd say probably 40% of the time I landed on a mini game, it was Maurice. And so I got pretty darn used to this one. But basically, it's sort of like a Game & Watch type game. You have these little pieces of wood or logs that you're basically bouncing on your spring, and you bounce it from left to right to get over to your little log pile and whatnot. Because in the movie itself, Maurice had like a wood chipper, I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video, and it's essentially chipping the wood. You can actually see the graphics off to the side, like the little axe there, and he's just catching the wood and moving it from left to right. And if you go through all 3 stages here and don't drop too many pieces of wood, you actually get the +4, which you get to once again add onto your dice on the next roll to advance a little bit faster around the board. Now, the next space I'm going to land on is a mirror, and this is going to allow you to have basically a random chance at any mini game. I happen to get Chip the teacup, and when you get Chip, you basically play sort of a memory game where Chip's teacup is basically set up in a line of different cups, and they shuffle all the cups around, and you have to try to pick which cup is still Chip. You go through 3 different stages of that, and if you go through all 3 of them, you've of course accomplished the main mission. And you're also going to notice in some of these mini games like a little star above it, and if you end up getting like a little star bonus in these mini games as well, and if you collect 3 stars, you get like an extra bonus mini game. And the bonus mini game is always the same as Gaston, basically sort of spitting his spit out to a spittoon here. And if you land it in a spittoon, you can get an extra roll, or you can get like a little horseshoe, which allows you to have extra steps on every single roll for the rest of the map. So you do want to collect the stars anytime you see them, but not every mini game gives you the option to have that extra collectible star. Now, after I go through all these mini games, I do finally get ahead of Gaston on the overall board. I advance to the final piece, which is going to be like the little rose from the movie itself. When you get there, it says you've beaten the village, and it has like a little cutscene here of Belle exiting the village, entering into the forest, and that's going to be your next map here. Now, the forest map is going to be a little bit larger than the village, and it's going to have a little bit different shape, but the gameplay or the gameplay loop here is going to be exactly the same. And so as you're going through it, all the same spaces, you're going to have the same mini games on it as the first map. I didn't land on all the different ones in the first map, so I'm going to cover the new ones that I landed on this one. I did land on LeFou, I think is his name. It's Gaston's assistant. And you do get like a little mini game here saying like Gaston's the best shot. So you could have like a little target practice, and it tells you which targets to avoid shooting. The first round is like avoid shooting the bombs. The second round is avoid shooting a certain color. And the third one's like a certain shape on the targets. And you simply have to shoot the appropriate targets, and you've won that mini game. Pretty simple. I also land on a Belle space on this map, and that's going to allow you to play a mini game where Belle's on top of a horse, and you simply have to jump over the rocks, jump over the wolves that are trying to attack you, and duck underneath the bats. It reminds me of that game that you play on Google, like when the internet doesn't work, and you're that little dinosaur running across the screen. I guess it's like a precursor to that to a degree, and there are probably tons of arcade games like this as well. This is not like the originator of this particular type of game, but it's a fairly fun one. The graphics here are pretty top notch. You have, you know, the horse here, Belle, the little background haunted forest, all the animals that are coming to attack you. It's good graphics for this one. I also landed on a beast space, and in this one you're going to have to fight off different wolves that are trying to attack you. And it has like arrows telling you like which way the wolf is going to come. If it's in the middle, you have to press that direction, and you have to hit the wolf. If it's coming above, you have to like duck down. If it's coming below, you have to jump. And like the timing on this one is a little bit off, and so like when you're trying to jump, it doesn't always work exactly the way you want to, or they come like a little bit early or a little bit late. Same thing when you're trying to defend left and right. And also the first time I played it, I just simply didn't understand the directions very well, and I actually lost this mini game almost every time that I played it. And so the first time I definitely get to -1 as the consequence there. And it's actually, this is the only one as far as like the mini games go, I lost on the forest, and it cost me to lose the entire overall board game. And so that was a little bit of a disappointment here to have to repeat the forest. But I do go through it all again, and on the second time around, I get another couple mini game spaces I haven't seen yet. I get the cabinet or the wardrobe lady. I don't know her name in the actual film. I can't think of it off the top of my head. And for this one, you just simply have to match different pairs. It's a matching game. She shows you the overall board here, and you simply have to flip the spaces over to match them all up. And obviously, the better you do, the more bonuses you're going to get for your next roll, like all of the other mini games go. Now, after you finish the forest, you do get another little cutscene here of Gaston basically bashing his way into the castle. Belle's coming out of the forest, going toward the castle, both still trying to get to the beast before the other one here. And oh, and that reminds me, when I lost the forest, there's a cutscene on that as well. If you lose lose, it actually shows like the beast watching the final petal from the rose come down, and then basically sinks into a great despair and depression, and shows his stained glass mirror self remaining the beast forever. A very sad cutscene. But anyway, that's only if you lose. If you win, you get the one where Belle and Gaston here are advancing toward the castle. Now the castle is definitely your largest map here. I would probably say it's at least double the size of the forest, and as I'm going through it, I do still get 2 mini games I haven't come across yet. I do get the Luminaire game, and for this one you're basically trying to prevent the basement from flooding, and so as water drips from the pipe up above, you try to catch it on your different flames or your different candlesticks, and it's just such a confusing game because usually you would play a game where you're trying to use water to put out a flame, not trying to use a flame to put out water. It just simply, I don't know, science-wise doesn't make a lot of sense here, but you know, we're playing a Beauty and the Beast board game. The other space I'm going to land on for the final mini game I haven't come across yet is going to be a broom, and for this one you basically have the little dog who's like a stool. He's going to hop on different chairs, and you have to use the broom to sort of sweep off the chairs in the order that he landed on them. So once again, a pretty basic memory game. Just simply watch where the dog jumps from chair to chair. And then back to the main board game here. When you get to the final piece on the castle board, you have officially won the game. The beast is found by Belle. His heart is warmed. He turns back into a human, and then it shows a nice little stained glass scene here of Beauty and the Beast living happily ever after. Or I guess not Beauty and the Beast anymore. Beauty and the Prince, I guess is what you call it now. I don't know. They live happily ever after. I don't know. Does it ever say the Beast's actual name in the movie? I don't know. If you know the Beast's actual name, let me know in the comments down below, because I do not know his actual name. And then we do get one very small, short, animated cutscene, not just a still image, and we get to see Beauty and the Beast, you know, in a romantic embrace here at the close. And that is the finishing of the game. Now, you can go back if you want to, and you can play the game over again on different difficulty settings. You can play the multiplayer, you can practice, you can go through the challenges. So there's a lot of replay value within it, but you are still going to be playing the overall same basic concept throughout all of those different modes. But let's talk about the game as an overall here. Now, this is a very easy game. This is basically a child's game. It's not meant for adult players to go through it. It's not meant for people to, you know, find the meta for the game or really, you know, dive deep into it. It's a very surface level board game that people probably got back in the day if they liked Beauty and the Beast and simply wanted to recognize the sprites from the movie in a Game Boy game. And so the game is very simple. Like I said, the mini games themselves, they're okay. None of them are like super great. Some of them are sort of lame, like the answering questions. That is a lame mini game. Any video game that you play that has you answering just simply multiple choice questions, that's not a fun game people actually want to play. Some of the other mini games where you're like trying to bounce the wood on your little spring here from one side to the other, those are very akin to Game & Watch, and those are probably the best ones inside the game. But like I said, none of them are like, you know, truly just mind-blowing amazing here. Average at best is probably the, you know, the max you're going to get out of one of these mini games. The board game itself, like I said, is not really a whole lot of fun. And so overall, oh, and the soundtrack. They really should have included the Beauty and the Beast soundtrack, like I mentioned at the start of the video here. But overall, I'd say this game probably 4.5 out of 10. Like I said, you probably buy it because you want a movie tie-in, something to go through fairly quick. It's fairly relaxing. It's not a terrible game, but there's not going to be a lot of audience for it in 2024. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.